And I've just gone live.
Oh,
Awesome.
Hello and welcome to our next Tavern Talk. This is for our Vaesen campaign, for episode 4 of our Vaesen campaign. Thanks for tuning in, and without any further ado, by the way, if you haven't watched episode 4 yet, don't watch this. Turn away and watch that first, because this is going to be full of spoilers as we talk about the last episode. So over to you, Eric, to walk us through it.
Oh yeah, that's right. I actually have to do something for this one. Huh. Yeah, so I guess I will. Yeah, I'll start with prep, just like Matt did. So I was thinking about this earlier, like what I would be talking about for this, and it feels kind of tricky because of the way the sort of mysteries work. I can't go too much into the process or what I've done or what I've prepared, because so much of it is to be discovered. So where I'll start is after last mystery with Dalafjord, I was thinking about how to change the format a bit to maybe suit these 2-hour increments better. I had the idea of shortening a mystery such that it only had 1 or 2 acts or something like that. I didn't in the end up succeeding in doing that, I don't think. But it did have me thinking about ways to sort of condense it down and create a different environment. And that sort of is what led to this being on a ship, which from what you guys have said, has been fun so far. So I'm really happy about that. And as a result, like it's a much more confined sort of space, but there's also a lot of sort of room within it. And so there's a great thing, and I've talked about this before. Niels wrote into it like this chapter about designing mysteries, and it's kind of based around places. And so obviously places on a ship is different from places in a village. And so what I do is, like, I've kind of made them sort of narrative places, so they have some relation to the physical layout of the ship itself, but they also have to do with how things are going in the mystery generally too. So let's see, what else can I say about this? Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. So far, it's been a lot of fun. I've certainly enjoyed it. Let's see. I wrote down something about like my physical prep. Matt, we were talking about Forbidden Lands in the other stream. You're talking about all that you've done, like sort of like OneNote, like kind of setting all this aside. So when I get ready for when we're playing, I kind of have my document open that I've written. I know everything is because I've written it, right? So that makes it a lot easier to begin with. Like,
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't need the document at all. Something I'm doing as we're playing is I have clues written down into the document, and I sort of line them out as we go through and we cover them. So I have a better idea of what things you've discovered and where that might be leading you. So I was looking at this document before we started the stream, and everything was lined out and stuff like that. So I do that. For this one, I did a map. I need to make a player-facing version of that. I promise that'll happen. Let's see. What else? What other sort of prep things? I wrote format down.
Tell
I'm
me
not even
about
sure what I meant.
tell me about your NPCs, because on a ship, I think NPCs are a big part of that, right? There's not a lot of places we can go to explore, and there was quite a rich cast of characters. So, tell us a little bit about like how you prep them.
Yeah, so this mystery is different from the first one in that I have I created characters to put into it that are specifically linked to your characters, right? Matt, you met this character who has like a shared background with your noble roots and what happened there, or Sven's noble roots, I should say. Um, and there are a couple of those. I can't say
Okay.
much
All right.
more about that.
Okay.
So yeah,
How
kind
about
of
like
followed through.
how about like
Sorry.
stat blocks and stuff for the NPCs? Are you writing down what kind of personality traits are you writing down to help you kind of get into character and remember
Yeah,
these sorts of things?
I write very simple stat blocks for Vaesen. But yeah, I will have an idea of how they act. I'll tend to give them like one or two traits, which I'll use in a moment to sort of kind of remind me like who is this, how they sort of act, anything that I think might be significant for how they play out. The actual stat blocks in sort of mechanical terms, it's like 3 lines. It's very, very simple.
Yeah.
I have a sort of play on again the Vaesen system that sort of suggested, where I'll tend to give like a baseline competency and then adjust from there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very simple, very easy to use and play, at least for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I guess there's not a lot you can talk about with prep.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I've done that I can really say much about.
Well, probably the atmosphere of the boat, right? How you saw this boat in your mind, and more or less. I really like it. I mean, I was really drawn into this setting for this mystery, honestly. More than I mean, I really like the town that you set for the first one, but I don't know, somehow it's more romantic about being, I don't know. I just like the idea of being on this boat that you're trying, everyone is enclosed in this area. There's not much you can do. So I'm thinking we are going to end up feeding the sharks, but we'll see.
It's a lot tenser because you can't just run away on a boat.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. You're
Yeah.
trapped, right? You can't jump overboard because you don't know what's going to happen. We're in Scandinavia, so it's like the water is probably pretty cold. Yeah, it's just really cool. There's a lot of constraints that are put on us in terms of what we can do or not do, and
There are
I like it.
lifeboats.
Sure,
Okay.
but it's still limited, right? Like if we take a lifeboat, that's a pretty big deal. Like,
Yep.
are we gonna be found if we jump ship in a lifeboat? Maybe not.
Yeah, that would make the next mystery just like the investigation of how to survive. Vaesen as a survival game.
Survival horror.
Yeah.
We're gonna end up eating each other.
Yeah. That's a really good thing to bring up, though. So I did, as I was prepping for this, it's very relevant. I did look up images, interiors of steam paddle ships of like the mid 19th century, and I used that for a lot of inspiration. So yeah, that's very relevant. Thank you. And that sort of influenced the map that I have, the ship that you're on. And yeah, and part of that as well is that Simon, of course, is from Åland, the archipelago in between Finland and Sweden. So part of that is also me tying his character in. There's some clause in this having to do with that, but also like personally for him, like you guys are gonna be going right by where he lives. That was all part of it.
So you two have been scheming together.
Not at all. I think I said one. I think I asked him one question. He's like, "Oh, okay." But yeah. Let's see what else. So actually running the mystery so far, I had some stuff about this and that in pacing. Right. Again, we're only doing these 2-hour segments, and part of like how I wanted to deal with that is again start it with the assumption that you've already sort of agreed to investigate this mystery, kind of give you like a quick lowdown on what's going on, and then we can kind of like get into it a little bit faster. So we had this thing where we were kind of like almost already on the way to Stockholm. There was a quick discussion of like what you do to look for like initial clues and things like that, which I thought played really well. You got some of the information you wanted. There is a bit of foundation as to what you're looking into. We did the sort of equipment sort of phase. I felt that went smoother than it did last time.
I do as well. Yeah.
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 I think we were cooperating this time. Sven was doing the right thing and playing along.
Yeah, we were all aware. That was kind of something we kind of picked up on, feedback-wise, right from the first episode. So I think we were all a little bit more on the ball too, maybe.
Yeah.
Like not trying
and
to
I also
derail
like
it.
that we actually took kind of roles in this boat. Like, okay, where are you setting? What are you gonna be doing? How are you gonna be using your character to find clues? Like Selma taking pictures and trying to engage with the people around, and Hjalmar and myself just being there drinking and then chatting with the people. I think we seem more cohesive as a team compared to the first time. We're like, oh, walking in the forest, where are we going? What is this?
I think the first time we were just caught completely off guard. We were shot. We started the thing. It was like it was chaos. It was complete chaos, and I think that's what drove it. I think that's why it's completely different this time around. We're all like in our element, doing our thing. We're not kind of running away from naked people with guns, which I think was
Not yet.
Definitely
not
yeah.
yet. Wait till
The
vodka breaks up.
lessons of the first mystery are well learned in how this one was written. It would be much more difficult for you to end up in a situation of physical conflict very early on here. It still wouldn't have been impossible if you had made some very strange decisions, but yeah.
Well, we've got like a Russian like gangsters on board. We have the first mate seems like capable of violence, and sailors in general, like, I'm sure if violence became, was on the table, they'd gladly pitch in and do their share.
Yeah, but
it's more a case of like there's no one instigating violence with us,
right,
which is, I guess, the difference.
Yeah.
It's interesting we mentioned the different roles. I have that feeling as well, that it does feel like we've gone into this one with a little bit more of an idea on what we're trying to do, and even though I had like mine personally, I had to change my plan a little bit when I discovered that there was somebody on board I knew. I'm still snooping around and stuff, but yeah, no, it's cool. I think it's just like Tony said, this one feels to me, there's something about it that's feels a little different to the last one, and I'm feeling a little bit more engaged with it. I think the previous one was just, we had no idea what was going to happen, and it was kind of just like we were just kind of going there and seeing what's going on. Actually, it could have kind of been anything, whereas this one it's still kind of the same. Like, well, we're suspecting that there's a haunting, right?
Right.
So we kind of, I guess we kind of know that, but we're on a boat, and it's just interesting.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Roger. Sorry.
No, what I was going to say is that it's something I actually said in character when we were playing last session. Is I still don't exactly know what we do as a group, in the sense that what we're aiming to do. You know what it means? I don't feel like our society has like an objective of whether we're here to discover the truth, to bring balance to the human Vaesen equation, to get rid of Vaesen where they are, or just check things out. Like, so.
And
That's actually a really great thematic question for
Yeah.
Vaesen in general. Is that
Yeah.
that's an open question about the society and its history, and how you've come to this point, and that's kind of what you decide as you go. So yeah, I think it's an interesting question to ask, and I think last time it was very much like directly into the fire, and it was harder to even strategize that.
It comes down to your individual characters as well, and where your sympathies lie, I think. Because we could have created characters that were much more devoted to destroying Vaesen, and like our episode 3 would have ended very differently in that case.
But I think we also, it feels more, as brothers were saying, I mean, I think we are more calm. We are taking it easy. We are enjoying the mystery. We are not running. The other one felt with more urgency, right? Because there was somebody injured, somebody lost in the forest, and there was these things happening also in town. I was healing everyone. I felt like, what's going on? Don't you have a doctor? Here it's like, we are enjoying, we are even having a drink. I don't know. And that's good also to develop characters. I think the last one we tried, but it was harder to do in this situation when things are happening and you are getting attacked here. You know, I was trying to chat either with Almar or even interact with Selma. Okay, take pictures, do something. And I think that's also nice that you can enjoy your group. And as Matt was saying, trying to figure out what each one of you do as a group, and and what can we do? What role are we going to be playing at the end?
I think it could lead to some nice party conflict as well, maybe down the line, where some of us start feeling strongly one way and others start feeling strongly another way, and that could be really cool. Yeah.
I still feel I'm kind of my character. Well, I think I'm more kind of the scientist, or more researching and understanding these things. So I think I think I already showed it last time in the other episode. I was like, oh, leave the thing alone, trying to save everything. But
I mean, I think definitely Amadeo in the first one was very like, we don't even know what this is yet. Let's not jump to conclusions. Yes, there's weird shit going on, but who knows?
I get that this one feels a little bit more spooky to me as well. Like you've already been dropping hints about seeing figures in the mist, and in fact, there's only the one time you mentioned that, but I was able to visualize that quite vividly, because it touched, like that's a common thing that you see in like horror films and TV series and stuff. It's like a vague person in the mist kind of walking away from you, and there's lots of like clever camera things you can do with it to make it kind of feel a bit spooky. And I don't know, I really connected with that. I quite remember that quite vividly from that session, still remembering that happening and seeing that figure on the other side of a cabin, or the no, it wasn't the cabin. It was up in the
outside. No, when we were, it was a storm. No, during the storm that you were.
Yeah, it was on the main deck, wasn't it? And was it through the bridge? Was it on the other side of the bridge or something?
The bridge, yeah.
And there was a figure like you just mentioned. I mean, it could have been one of the crew. But I kind of felt like the like hairs on the back of the neck sort of thing. Like, okay, is something about to happen? Like, even though my character shouldn't really think anything about it necessarily. I mean, we are all expecting haunting, right? So.
I mean, I think it's very. I like what you're saying, Matt. But I also feel it's very hard to get this well done in an RPG. I think I've never been really spooked in an RPG. I mean, fair enough. I played D&D Pathfinder before, so you don't care.
That sounds scary.
That's not the scary part, right?
How many hit points does the ghost have? That's the question.
No, but it's very tough how you describe this, how you unsettle your characters and make them be on their toes all the time. That's tough. And I think in this mystery, you have the chance to make us, suffer a bit. in that way, like horror, maybe. I don't know. Maybe
this is where this also makes having a system that is gritty and deadly really helps to make you feel more scared as a player. Because you feel that connectedness with your character, and you feel the kind of mortality of them a little bit. My most vivid memories, like my scariest game I've ever played was a hunter game, and we were going up against vampires and werewolves and things. But like literally, any single time we encountered a monster, it could kill us fairly easily. unless we got super lucky. And there was just a shitload of prep. Just like most of that campaign was preparing, laying the groundwork, making sure we had the right equipment, making sure we got the drop on this thing, that we surprised them. Because if we didn't, we would just be torn apart, and like literally torn apart. And it was terrifying. Like when our plans almost never worked out as we planned them, it was kind of like this, like, do we just push on and just like we're halfway committed, we're here, we've got the equipment, they know we're there, like if we try and run they might just chase us down, like do we just keep going or do we make a run for it? And it is pretty terrifying. And you can't get that with D&D or Pathfinder or games like that, because you have this massive hit point cushion. The enemies aren't generally portrayed as monsters, they're portrayed as obstacles with a massive hit point track you're whittling away at. And you think about video games, like you look at games like Final Fantasy, where you're literally whittling away turn by turn at a monster's hit points, and there's different powers you do on your turn. That's kind of like a traditional RPG. And compared to something like I don't know, any of the modern, like current, like more like some of the more recent horror games, which I can't even play anymore because they're so fucking terrifying. I tried Resident Evil 7 is on the Xbox Game Pass for PC, and I tried playing that like a few weeks ago, and I played it for like 2 hours, and I was just like, nah, okay, it's way too intense. Like I love horror films, like is one of my favorite genres for films, but there's something about a video game where I like the disc, like I'm in control of the character. It's so much more vivid, and anyway. So I think for role-playing games, that's a big part of it, is feeling that helpless, feeling a little bit more helpless, or feeling a little bit more vulnerable, and it will kind of amplifies the whole thing. So
it's true.
I don't know.
I like the point that you mentioned now. I mean, changing a little bit about the equipment. I think this time we prepare better. I mean, the thing they were saying about the hunter, that you had to prepare before. I remember the first mystery, we were like, yeah, whatever, we'll buy this. And this one, I think we were more directed. No, I don't remember what I bought, but I felt like I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna be in this location, this happened last time, so what I'm gonna bring with me this time. And I think each one of us did it this time, which last time we were like, yeah, whatever, let's just go, let's get weapons and that's it. But this time I think we didn't take we took weapons, but I think we also took like regular items that could be helpful. So I think it's also, that's an evolution. I mean, we are doing something right, I hope.
I have to turn down alcohol.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't bring my bow. I had that bow. I didn't bring that because of it's not going to be much use on a ship.
Speaking of being terrified of dying, I got Selma a dog because Selma is literally terrified of dying now because
she nearly died.
Yes.
Very close.
For next time, I want to do more with the dog. I feel like we just kind of.
Yeah, I didn't feel like there was much.
In the cabin, and then there wasn't much mention. I think Matt brought up that, like, is the first mate okay with the dog going on? I'm like, yeah, that's a big deal. But beyond that, I don't think we thought about the dog at all.
Amethyst behaves very well. She's a good dog.
At some point, that you have to walk him or her, and
we have this thing in my home group where when we play Dungeons and Dragons, if anyone has a pet of any kind, you're basically like, as soon as you introduce a pet into the game, it's going to be targeted by the GM. It's got a massive target on it. And there's always this thing where, like, anytime we have a combat encounter, it's like, how long, like, will the pet survive this combat encounter? Because most of the time it doesn't happen. So it's kind of interesting. Like, I don't play many games with pets unless it happens to be one of these games, because it's just kind of a thing that our home group does. So it's kind of interesting having a pet here now and not having a game like that. So we'll see how.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. It's a horror game, so maybe you'll go back to your cabin and Amethyst is going to be smeared on the walls with writing.
Spoiler.
We had a Warhammer 2nd Edition game where a character managed to scrounge up enough to buy a 3 gold worth dog that lasted a total game time of 5 minutes.
Wow.
Wow.
We started
Gold
the next
well
session.
spent.
We started the next session and there was an ambush, and one of the characters fired a shotgun into the group, and the dog just.
No.
Wow.
Fun.
Wow.
That was.
Well, that's also Warhammer and black powder weapons, I guess, to a certain extent. But yeah. That's true. Warhammer does have a lot of pets, doesn't it? Or can do.
So, Yeah, another thing I wanted to, it kind of like feeds into what we were saying so far. I think my favorite scene of the last one is like you had first come into your cabin and you had this whole thing where you're kind of like settling into the cabin, you're having drinks and you're having this discussion, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was very cool. It seemed like you guys were having fun, and it also led sort of mechanically to a situation where it's like, yeah, like this is exactly what the rules mean when they're talking about sort of like rest and recovery scenes, right? In the sort of initial fact finding you had done before this, a couple of you had taken conditions from pushing, and it seemed like the perfect time to sort of let that all out. So sort of both in narrative and mechanics, I felt like that's went really, really well. It flowed well, and yeah, so
And we got drunk.
a little tipsy before going out. No, it's really good.
But that was back in our headquarters, right?
No, it was on the
No,
boat.
it was in the
cabin.
cabin. It was in the cabin already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were both angry for different reasons, or I was angry
Yeah.
and someone else was angry.
It's true. We used the liquor that they had. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
I formed a personal vendetta against the first mate.
That's right. Yeah.
I will destroy his life over the coming year.
Yes, and that's of course right. Like that's also one of the great highlights of that session was Salma manipulating this first mate into looking for the spilled punch and how that goes through. And I thought again, like, this is another interesting thing where mechanics and narrative sort of work together in a way that was really good, right? Like I had looked at the time for what are the stunts for, I think it was manipulation, and you can cause him like mental stress, and it's like, yeah, we can do that. You can sort of break this guy mechanically, or like, you know, we can give you this really cool sort of narrative advantage with this character, and I really liked where we took that. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing how that plays out for the rest of this, where you've
I'm gonna
gaslighted this guy to 11.
I'm gonna start leaving glasses of punch in random places along the ship.
NPC fuckery.
And who manipulated it and made him, because of something, you made him believe that something broke? That was Hjalmar, no? That manipulated also the first mate to make him go back and check the saloon, no? That something was broken, no?
That was Selma.
That was Selma? I thought it was Hjalmar, actually. I don't know why. Okay. So that's what, yeah. It's true. Now he's gonna be scared.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool little threads going on already.
Yeah.
I think this is the cool thing. Like, it was only a 2-hour session, but we are on the boat. We got onto the boat relatively speedily, I felt, considering we had to do the kind of shopping trip and all the rest of it and get us to the boat. But yeah, you introduced quite a big cast of characters, and we had plenty of time to interact with them, and there's a lot of cool and little interesting things happening.
I also like that we had time to prepare like to investigate before going to the boat. The time that we spent at the Stockholm.
Yeah.
That was also nice. Because last time we didn't have the time to do this, and I think each one came with a different idea, and we actually looked at the newspapers. I think the hospitals. I don't remember if we look at the hospitals.
Yeah, I mean, so in the first one, I sort of gave that opportunity, and a couple of you did make a roll for the library. If you remember, you were like cross-indexing
Exactly,
like
I did that, yeah.
berries and muskets or something, you know, like so there was a little bit of that, but
I think we all got a bit more into it this time, because last time Amadeo went to the library, and Hjalmar and I went shopping.
yeah,
and that was it. That was kind of like two very distinct different things that were happening at the same time. Whereas this time it was like we were all investigating, and we also had all done our shopping as well. So it felt a little bit more united in that respect, in terms of trying to do some background research before we got on board.
So how many people do you think are on this boat? I don't know. I remember if we got a number. How many?
Oh, no, I never gave you a number.
Ah, okay.
I'm under the impression that there's probably passenger-wise, there's probably about 30-ish. Is kind of in my head what I've got an idea of.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
And
yeah, it's not something
crew
I'm
maybe
gonna nail
about
down.
10 to 20 maybe crew. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean that all sounds good ballpark. I think that's about what I have in mind as well. But yeah, that's the sort of thing where I'm not going to get into the details of it. Unless...
So you haven't got a list of every single person on board the ship, all statted up, and motivations and
I know
conspiracy pyramids and
yeah, no, no. I have a few NPCs and.
I
Eric,
imagine you at least have what plates were going to be served for dinner for each person.
Right. I have your seating chart for the captain's dinner.
That's important. You've got your priorities.
Yeah.
Is there anything in Vaesen to do like on the fly NPCs? Kind of easy if you need
Yeah,
to
there is.
link them. I don't know.
I think I feel like especially doing this virtually, I would struggle to do that on the fly by actually like, using the tools that they give. I had thought that the GM screen had the sort of name list, like there was like a roll of die and get a name. I guess it's not on the GM screen, which is a shame because that would actually be really cool. They do have tables and stuff for that, which is great. But I don't think virtually is as good as it might be at the table.
Yeah, you don't have the time to, spend maybe 5 minutes setting this up, right? You cannot stop, get a pizza while you finish this.
Right. Yeah, give me a couple minutes. I need to
order a pizza. We have time.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that, man.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big problems I think of when you're running a mystery. If you reveal which NPC doesn't matter and which one does matter, it kind of like shifts everything up, like it, because in a normal game, if a players come up and say, okay, who's this guy and what's his name, you wouldn't be like, oh, I've got everything ready, so you'd be like, okay, I don't know, let's find out, let's just improvise. It doesn't really matter. But in a mystery, it's like when your players say, oh, what's this guy's name, and you're like, and you have to kind of do that weird thing when you're the GM and you have to pretend like you already have every single name on the ship, and
That's true. Actually, it's a bit different with the mystery, because I think we would instantly as players be like, you haven't prepped this guy, so this guy's not actually that important to this mystery. So
exactly, I think that's a big issue.
It's interesting. I think it also comes through with how you write the mystery too. You can leave some flex room in there such that an impromptu
quantum clues
could be.
Oh boy. How much time have we got?
Yeah.
Actually, Liam's not here. We're fine.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
Fenhorn's
Sorry,
made
go ahead.
Fenhorn's made a point in the chat of saying that name lists. He said name lists get old quickly. I usually come up with a number of names to be used when I prep a session. It's actually exactly what I do most of the time. I agree that if somebody else comes up with a name list, especially if it's only 36 names, you kind of go through them fairly quickly. And from my experiences with Mutant Year Zero, Mutant Year Zero has a bunch of names in the books. That doesn't actually have a name list, but the names that are being used there's not a lot of them, and I feel like they're all used in every game for slightly different NPCs, and it just feels a bit weird. Plus, I love looking up name lists myself and like finding cool names. And what I generally do is I tend to have like about a dozen names that I'll look up in advance, and as I use one, I will cross it off my list, and it's like, have like, be like, okay, I was using this name for some NPC I'm dropping in quickly in the session, and you cross it off a list, and then do it that way. Anyway.
Anything's better than naming an NPC after one of the player characters.
I tend to agree. My fault for picking a very common Nordic name, I guess.
So yeah, there was that. The only thing I have left actually written down, I looked at the video to see if there were any YouTube comments to it. and someone was talking about all my vocal tics. So I'll try and keep track of that. So there we go.
Like, can you give us some examples?
Oh, just like as I'm describing something,
Yeah.
and I'm aware I do this, I'll sort of add in extra modifiers or ums or ahs or things like that,
Oh, okay.
which are unnecessary.
Yeah, my friends told me the same when I GM in English. I say basically all the time. Basically,
Right.
this happened. Basically, this is gonna be now. And
Yeah.
I also have this kind of things. It's normal.
I think I say kind of a lot. Like I have a tendency to, I have a tendency to mitigate everything. Not mitigate. That's the wrong word. To qualify everything. So.
I started saying something kind of as a joke in our group, and then it just got stuck to me, which is what appears to be. Because
Right.
I say that all the time when I'm
Yeah.
so it started out as a group thing where they'd be like, okay, so what are we looking at here? And it's like, well, it appears to be this.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh.
Right.
They need to ask you the right question, which is, what does it appear to be? Huh.
So
We all have
it's something I'm aware of. I will try to be better. I actually go back and I often watch or at least listen to these streams after we do them, and it is something like I'm aware of and try to listen for. But in the moment when, especially you're sort of creating off the top of your head, it's easy to fall into.
I think most people have them, unless you're already some form of public speaker.
Yeah, you're
I
well
notice it a lot.
trained.
On Mud and Blood, like I do a lot of editing. I'm currently doing a lot of editing for a cult actual play, and I'm constantly picking it up because it's like it like trying to find gaps or like long breaks of like what are they called? Dead, not dead space, whatever.
Silence.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like lengths of time where nobody's talking. Like the GM might be waiting for somebody to like ask the question, waiting for somebody. You might have like 3 or 4 seconds where no one's responding, and then someone says something, and it's like you got to cut that out. You got to do that for like editing. And when you start cutting little things out, it's easy to say like, oh, there's an in there. I'll just cut that out, and I'll cut that out. And you start picking up on all that. You kind of see that. Or if somebody's stuttering, or not stuttering, it's not stuttering. It's saying the same thing a couple of times before they kind of get into the flow.
The flow.
I mean, I've just done it just now.
Right.
And saying
Yeah.
and in the moment you don't notice it, but when you listen back to it, it definitely becomes more noticeable. And I think if somebody's watching it and is involved in it live, it's also much more noticeable.
Yeah, it's
It is what it
definitely
is.
something that requires professional training to be able to speak without pausing, without ums and ends and
Yep.
Right. And I think generally though it's also good advice, which is interesting. What you're talking about with cult is to be comfortable with silence, and that's something I try to be sort of cognizant of. Like when I'm running these games, it's just letting silence for a few moments as people think or
sure.
contemplate what they're doing. So it works better with some groups than others. I notice like some people really want the GM to be sort of kind of pushing things along. You can get a group together. I mean, like happens with you guys. I get into situations where I can just shut up and listen, and that's the best. So
Yeah.
It's true. I also like when the players can interact and you are just enjoying the situation. Because true, as a GM, sometimes you feel like you're the one leading all the time, and you know you're stressed to get things done. But it's nice when you can just sit down and enjoy the story unfolding in front of you, and you are not the active participant of it. You're just listening and enjoying. You set up everything, and it happens, and you're like, wow, that's nice.
yeah, those are the best times.
Yeah.
Yep.
I generally prefer that when the GM has to kind of like, I don't know if react is the word, but when the players are taking the initiative and all the GM does is react to the decisions they take, and not this idea of the GM has to lead the party on, pushing them in the right direction, sort of thing.
Well, I think it comes from probably from what we were talking before. Like if when you play, if you're used to play D&D and Pathfinder, that's the way you do things. This is the story. This is the dungeon. You're trying to push them to get to the final boss. Here, you're trying to create this story and more narrative games, and that's why I like the narrative games, because you enjoy the story. You want to enjoy every single discussion you're gonna have.
Yeah, and it depends on the player too. It's not like we were saying. It's not like I'm saying that it's wrong fun or anything like that. It really depends on the players who are on what they want. I mean, I remember this one guy had on my table that really just loved having me as a GM tell him what to do and where to go and where to kill the things, and he was loving it. He would love it. But as soon as the other players would be like, oh, let's talk a little and let's maybe mingle with these random characters that are completely meaningless to the story, he would get upset. He would get so upset. He's like, we're wasting time, guys. The adventure's over there, and we're with the blacksmith's son who doesn't matter, and you're getting a drink, and your monkeys steal. Stop this. Stop having fun.
Right.
But he would have fun his own way. So I guess it's just a matter of finding a table that likes the same stuff you do, I guess.
Yeah. That's key, I think.
Yeah, and I think we have been lucky. I like the group in Vaesen, not just I think we are doing a good job in that sense. I mean, I think we all enjoy the story, and we try to to be real in character, like try to play our characters and enjoy those moments and get to know each other. And it's true, you don't get it all the time with every single group you get.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, and I think as players, we also kind of have to be a bit of GMs, because we also have to decide, like we were talking the other times, we have to decide where we put the focus on the story. Are we going to spend 30 minutes role-playing? Are we going to advance the adventure? Are we going to do a little bit of both? We were talking about that last time. I think it was in the Tavern Talk, or one of the Tavern Talks, where we had to kind of like cut, because of the limited time we have on the stream, we have to do a little bit of everything. We can't just say, let's just chill and RP for like 2 hours. We'll have a blast and the story will go nowhere. I think it's also kind of the responsibility of the player to lead that in the right direction and not have the GM push us, because obviously Eric would be forced to push us if we're sitting in our cabin talking and we're having this wonderful philosophical discussion of Vaesen and human relationships, and it's amazing.
It sounds like maybe that needs to happen. You guys don't even know your attitude toward Vaesen yet, so I'm not sure I would push that. But, yeah.
That's a good point, though. I mean, I think both this game and Forbidden Lands, in fact, all the games on this channel are full of GMs. I don't think there's any of the games have anyone who is not an experienced GM.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes for a slightly different experience, I think. And part of that's me. Like, this is my channel. I've recruited everyone who's playing. And it's not that I don't know people who aren't GMs, but I kind of I think I've played with almost everybody who's, let me just think about this. Almost everybody who is a player on Three Skulls Tavern, I've definitely played with all of you at least once, but I think almost all of them have been GMs for me at some point.
Yeah.
Other than, I don't think Simon's GM'd for me yet. I don't think
Simon's not GM for any of us.
I don't think Charlotte has GM'd for me either, actually. I've been in a lot of games with Charlotte, but not with her as a GM.
Simon claims to GM, but we have no hard evidence.
We've never seen evidence of it.
I think that might be it. I think everybody else has GM'd for me. But yeah, anyway. But yeah. I think it definitely helps having GMs in the party to help think, like, because you're aware of the challenges for a GM, right? We're aware that the story needs to go on, but at the same time we want to have fun as players. And I think there's a lot of responsibility that we feel in the story to kind of keep it moving. And I think also because of the format, because this is being streamed, it's being recorded, it's being broadcast, that we also are all very much aware of that. And you know, I mean, when I've been a player for all of you, other than Eric, this is the first time Eric's ever GM'd for me.
That's not. We had the Harn game too.
Oh, we had the Harn game. Sorry, yeah, that's true. So I think every other time anyone, all of you have GM'd for me, it wasn't recorded. Although Tony, apologies, it's still it was recorded. It still hasn't been broadcast. Yeah. Most of the time, I think that it feels like there's different pressures in terms of the this kind of streaming thing. Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
I think that the ideal is that what you're doing, like, you're talking about role playing without advancing the story, but you're sort of role playing, like if you're having an active scene in a way that should be advancing the story in its own way. And I think that if we go back to the scene where you first came back to your cabin and you're having this discussion, that was advancing the story insofar as you're setting up where you are, what you want to be looking into, like kind of building the team in a way. Also mechanically sort of recovering those conditions, even though that's not what you guys were setting out to do. It flowed and made sense. And the mystery is written in such a way that I think that everything you've done has been advancing the story, I would say. And yeah, I mean, I think that's really good. I don't know if that's particular to mysteries or investigations, but yeah, no, I think everything's going really well, and we're set up in a really good spot now where, where we had this first session where things felt more casual. There's a bit of tension sort of in the background, like these strange things that you've seen, or the idea that there's this haunting going on. But now, where we left off, there's, what sounds to be a more serious situation, and how all that's going to start playing out. This ball might start rolling really quickly. So we'll see how the next session goes for pacing with the first one.
So do you think it's gonna be 2 more? I don't know. I guess it can go anywhere, I guess. But 2 or 3 more sessions, because that's the one.
I was asking myself that earlier if I think it's gonna be 1 or 2 more. Really not sure. There's definitely a world in which it ends next session.
Is that with us all dead?
Big ball of
yeah.
big explosion, no?
Yeah.
Boiler explodes with the passing.
The Bothnian sinking to the bottom of the sea.
Right.
Anyone explodes this ship, it's going to be us.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's for sure.
Or even resolved in some slightly more satisfying way, but we'll see. It could be 1 or 2. I really don't know.
And we've got plenty of little hooks to go on, I think. So I can definitely see things feeling a little bit more focused. But yeah, we'll see what.
I don't know if we have a lot of clues. I don't know.
Well, I've got a clue with this. Hearing somebody who's been gagged, right?
Yeah, but is that a clue of the mystery?
Maybe.
I mean,
yeah, right. Because we don't really we have ideas of who should be asking, but I don't think we have a clue yet.
Yeah, we do. The Russians.
Is that a clue?
Last time. It is it's a super clue. They appeared last time.
No, but it's not telling us
The
anything
same
about...
people were there on both voyages.
Well, yeah, but
They're about to meet the captain.
But is this really related to the Vaesen or not? We don't know yet.
Yes. Yes is the answer. Yes, it definitely is.
Okay, fine. Now he's misleading us to a different way.
Eric's like, okay, prep for next session.
I'm just taking notes, yeah.
It's just the Russian mafia. They are, hiding people on board, and I don't know. The human trafficking. Maybe it's just that.
Could be.
I don't know.
So
both.
Fenhorn's mentioned in the chat that a 2-hour session is perfect for 1 act or 1 scene, and that too many acts or scenes in a mystery and the players can lose interest and start to forget what happened in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is good, because I think that's, I've played Alien just once, and it was the beta adventure, Chariot of the Gods. And it's split into 3 acts, and I quite like that. I quite liked having. I mean, it's very much a pre-written adventure. If certain things happen, and it feels quite regimented in terms of you're taking part in a story, kind of. Unlike this, which feels a little bit more sandboxy. But yeah, I agree with that, where it's you kind of want to keep those self-contained a little bit. I don't think you'd want to go from one act into another one necessarily, or think like, oh, we've still got 15 minutes. Let's get as much done with the next one as we can. Yeah. Speaking of 2-hour sessions, we've been talking about starting to expand the duration of our actual plays in the near future. Whether we start doing that for the next for our November games still needs to be discussed and agreed with the players, but I want to start increasing the times from 2 hours to 2.5 hours. I should have mentioned this in the Forbidden Lands Tavern talk, but whatever.
Yeah.
So we don't need to discuss this here. I just thought it kind of makes sense to talk about it a little bit. It does give a bit more breathing room, especially in investigation, I think, where we have a little bit more time to dig around and maybe don't feel that pressure so much that we've got a lot to do in 2 hours necessarily. But yeah, I think 3 hours feels too long, but 2 hours is just feeling a little bit on the tight side. So,
And the frequency, no, we're going to increase maybe, but in January maybe.
I think we're not going to be increasing the frequency until the new year.
Right.
Yeah.
January.
And I think, well, there's going to be some changes. I think we might even be, we'll see what happens with Vaesen with this one, whether we're going to keep this going as well, or whether we'll bring this to a close after whichever current mystery we're working on. But yeah, I think that's more of a general discussion. I was actually been thinking about doing a recording for the channel, just like a 10-15 minute one to talk about the future once we've made some decisions about it, to talk about what's coming up, and I can pin that to the front of the YouTube channel as well. So,
because for now we play next Sunday. Vaesen.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, next Sunday, and then the third one, if there is a third
15th. That's right.
act. Yeah, the 15th, and then if there is a third act, it has to be before the end of November, I guess.
Well, it could be in the beginning of the new year.
I don't know. Yeah, are we stopping in December?
Maybe this does end next time.
Maybe
it goes down.
Maybe we'll die next. The Russians kill us all.
We can talk about it, but I wanted to keep December quite free. I'll still be streaming stuff, but I didn't. I don't want to be running anything in December, just because I got so much on, and yeah, so it's probably gonna be more like me doing dev diaries and stuff in December. And we were planning on taking a break from Vaesen, so the idea was that our next session would be it until January, so we'll have 8 weeks in between the next session and the one after it. So maybe we'll do 2.5 hours.
Maybe. Yeah.
If everyone can do it, then maybe it makes sense, because we know we're having this massive gap coming up. And I'll probably try and do the same thing for Forbidden Lands too, actually. So
Yeah.
I'll mention it in our private Discord, our player chat. See what people think. But yeah, that might be something we look at changing going forward. Starting soon.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. I don't think we've got anything else to talk about, do we?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
No.
So thanks to everyone in chat, namely Fenhorn.
Yeah. Thanks for coming and hanging out.
Yeah. And for pointing out that I'm a big softie and not as hardcore as he thought.
When it comes to horror stuff, I'm a total softie.
I love horror as a genre, just not just come to realize not very, very realistic graphic first person stuff. I've played Amnesia in the past, and that was okay. That was pretty scary, but I don't know, Resident Evil 7 was just, I noped out of that after a couple hours, oh my god, okay, this is getting to me. Anyway.
Yeah.
I can't play horror. I just get too immersed, and it's just terrifying. I remember trying to play. I can play it if I'm with someone else. For example, The Forest co-op. I can play it because I can scream. I can scream next to someone else, and that's fun. But when I have to play by myself, I can't. I just freeze up, and I'm like, oh my god, 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 oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also like it's not just the first person shooters. What was that game called? Is it called like I think I've got it installed. It's like called Deadwood, I think, or something like that.
No, the Polish
Darkwood.
game.
Darkwood.
Darkwood. It's Polish, yeah.
Actually, that one is okay, but I remember that made me feel really uncomfortable in certain places when I was like, "Oh my god, what is this game? Jesus!" But that's also different. Like I can still continue to play that one, but it's the first person stuff where you're like in a spooky house and you can hear things. I play with headphones on, cracking volume right up, so it's like, I mean, the only way to be more immersed, I think, and I play at night generally as well, would be to have a virtual reality, would do it VR, right? And
that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Terrifying.
I that's a step too far for me, especially if it's like super realistic graphics. Nah. No.
I remember my nope moment in the forest is when I was like chopping some trees, living the life on the island, and suddenly I'm surrounded by 3 of these the creatures that attack you. And they're like standing perfectly still, and that was even more terrifying than the typical monsters that go.
Well, like just watching
at
you.
Right.
They were just like.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And then they just charged at me, all 3 at the same time, and I was terrified as hell. It was a creepy ass game.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, and everyone for turning up. Cool. And I'll catch all 3 of you, plus Simon, next week.
Next week, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, maybe for 2.5 hours. Yeah. We'll see if we all survive.
Yeah.
Or if we got what's the term for the mafia? The cement shoes.
Wow.
Or
Swim
are we all
with
gonna
the
swim with the
fishes.
fishes? Right.
Yeah.
It's the other one. Cool.
What's the cult line? There are worse things than death, or death is only the beginning.
Death is only the beginning.
All
Cool.
right.
Maybe we were the Vaesen all along.
Da, 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 da.
Directed by M. Night Shyamalan.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Thanks everyone, and catch you next time.